Coming up,
the birds really are incredible parts of nature.
the inspiration behind the Rise Raptor Project and the Cherokee Nation citizen pushing for conservation and teaching principles of good stewardship. Plus,
a lot of the times I feel like I need to write, like truly need to write like a person needs to breathe.
Jessica Mehta's metaphor for a life built upon words.
Who's got the keys?
And life on the road with Red Dirt Cherokee musician Wayne Garner.
My fans see me as a native artist. We exist, we're out there. There's not very many of us.
The Cherokees.
A thriving American Indian tribe.
Our history.
Our culture.
Our people.
Our future.
The principles of a historic nation.
Sewn into the fabric of a modern world.
Hundreds of thousands strong.
Learning, growing,
Succeeding.
And steadfast.
In the past, we have persevered through struggle.
But the future is ours to write.
Osiyo.
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 These are the voices of the Cherokee people.
I'm Cherokee Nation Principal Chief Chuck Hoskin Jr. On behalf of Cherokee citizens, I'm pleased to present Osiyo, Voices of the Cherokee People, a program dedicated to Cherokee history and heritage. The stories you will see represent Cherokee values, pride, and culture. We hope you enjoy it. Wado.
Osiyo, it's how we say hello in Cherokee. I'm your host, Jennifer Lauren, at the Cherokee National History Museum in Tahlequah, Oklahoma, where visitors can learn about Cherokee Nation citizens who left a lasting impact during their time. We'll have one such story later on in the show. But first, Curt Cearley is a falconer in Alabama, passionate about protecting birds of prey and teaching others about their roles in nature and within tribal cultures.
At the core, I think the inspiration is possibly something I was just born with. Some people are born to do different things. They have different talents. I've always been, as a child, interested in wildlife. When I was about 3 years old, somebody in our neighborhood had a crow that they had obviously raised as a baby. It was mal-imprinted on humans. And just out of nowhere, this crow would appear. So I would play with it, and I was always fascinated with that. The birds really are incredible, incredible parts of nature. And to be able to work with an animal like that is a great privilege. Rise Raptor Project is actually a continuation of many years of work that I have done with birds of prey, or raptors. RISE is actually an acronym that stands for Raptors Inspiring Stewardship Through Education. The most important part is ensuring that our birds are cared for in the highest possible way that we can do that, giving them the best lives possible. So it is a full-time job on top of a full-time job. So we have a great responsibility. The birds are protected under the United States Fish and Wildlife Service, in particular the United States Migratory Bird Act of 1918. So our birds are under that umbrella. These are birds that travel to many different areas, schools, libraries, so they have to feel comfortable with people. So that means a lot of training, a lot of care. The birds are excellent teachers and partners in teaching different things, whether it's wildlife conservation, science, but also that goes into the aspects of history. With my background in connection to the Cherokee Nation, I'm a direct descendant of Jagayu Nanyehi, the beloved woman Nancy Ward of the Cherokee Nation. So that is quite an honor, I think, to be associated with the Cherokee people in that way. I found that very intriguing to learn as much as possible what the views of the native peoples were with birds. Obviously, we know that they were very important to them, There's artifacts from even going back to the mound cultures. A lot of the written history we don't have, but we do have artifacts that point us to that the birds were very important to them in some way. The Oakville Indian Mounds is a very special place to Native peoples. It's one of the few remaining sites, protected sites of the mound era. And they have a museum there. So it's a center, being part of the education system, Center for Learning, education about Native topics or Native culture life. So I'm very honored that they would ask me to come down there. One particular event is a multicultural event, so it's not geared toward any particular tribe. My part is that they wanted to show the birds. So they didn't really know initially. In my hat here, I'm wearing 2 golden eagle feathers. I'm a member of the Cherokee Nation based out of Tahlequah, Oklahoma. And so my dress today is more late 1700s, early 1800s, what the Cherokee people might have worn. So it was kind of that interest. It's like, and as a kid, it's like, okay, what was the significance of feathers? Why did they wear feathers? And why did some tribes wear a headdress and other tribes didn't? And the research is very difficult. We don't have written records from the majority of any of those cultures. But of the things that do exist, we can glean information about how important these birds are. I still get that feeling when I walk out and see one of our red tails or something. It's still, that feeling is still there. It's still, the excitement is there of learning. It's also difficult, because knowing the responsibility. These birds are not pets. They're not domesticated. They are wild animals. Technically, they don't belong here. They don't belong in a conservation program if, the nature worked and was taken care of as it's supposed to be. So the reason why they're with me is so that we can hopefully go out, teach people, share what they are, share them, what their lives and the wild lives. So our hope is that they fall in love with our birds. The next time they see a bird, perhaps they'll fall in love with it, and then they will fall in love with its home and take care of it. In doing so, we'll take care of ourselves as humans too. When I'm thinking about memories, I'm like, favorite memories, I'm thinking the best ones are not even created yet. I only have a glimpse of them. I have international projects. I have a potential book project. Research projects, I'm thinking, wow, there's people that I've just started meeting that they're just giants in the conservation world that I haven't met yet. So I have great memories, but I'm thinking the best ones are yet to be written.
Jessica Mehta is a poet and author who turned her passion for writing into a business. But writing, she says, for her is really a healing process that's gotten her through the toughest moments in life.
A lot of the times I feel like I need to write, like truly need to write, like a person needs to breathe.
I'm Jessica Mehta in Hillsboro, Oregon at the moment. I'm the author of over a dozen books, mostly poetry. I'm also a poetry editor for 3 different journals, and I'm the owner of the company Metaphor, which provides writing services to a lot of different corporations and businesses.
So I was born in Southern Oregon, a town called Central Point, which is a suburb of Medford. I lived there until I was 15 and moved up to Portland and have pretty much been here off and on for the past 20+ years. Early Saturdays, before the dawn, before the morning birds, I walked the trails of Forest Park beyond the zoo, crushed the arteries of Hoyt Arboretum beneath my spreading feet, turned the fallen petals from the rose garden to shaving peels.
It was there in the darkness of Portland mornings that I felt most alive. Before the throngs of tourists arrived and the fat pink trolley made its chortling rounds, when rabbits were still brave enough to dash between bushes and the good swings wide enough for birthing hips held a layer of night frost close as you, the one I left sleeping in the loft. I mean, I'd always written poems. Not like I do now, they were just kind of one-offs. Immediately after my master's program, I actually taught English in South Korea for a year because I did not want to be in the traditional office setting. I came back to Oregon, and I was at a place where I just wanted to see like what could happen. I moved to Costa Rica for a year because it's really low cost of living. And I told myself, I'll give myself a year to make a certain amount of money as a writer or see if I can. And if that doesn't work out, then I'll go back to Oregon in the nonprofit world. While I was in Costa Rica, I also started travel writing for a local company. They didn't pay, but they paid for my transportation to all of the best sites in Costa Rica. They paid to stay at the best resorts. They paid to go to the best restaurants and do all of these activities. And I think like starting with that kind of experience, anyone is gonna want to keep being paid or comped to travel and write. And I continued writing poetry and poems continued accumulating. And then I thought, I think like there's a book inside me, as every writer thinks. I should probably get this novel down. And it was once again based on my relationship. The wrong kind of Indian. It's whoever, whether that's me or my husband. It's basically the story of how my husband and I met, starting from like the very beginning and ending at our marriage in India. I always knew that my dad was Cherokee, that I was half, that, this is my part of the family here. But I didn't really realize fully that I wasn't like everybody else because this was a small Oregon town. My dad is from Stillwell, Oklahoma. He was the youngest, and his mom died in childbirth. Some of his siblings were considerably older than him. They were almost adults, and the rest were probably within 5 years. His dad couldn't handle it, didn't know what to do, so put them in Indian boarding school, and that's how he was raised. He was unhappy. He was also an alcoholic, but more of the binge drinker variety, and my mom was more of the daily type. My dad was from Oklahoma, but ended up going down to Texas. He was serving a 7-year prison sentence for armed robbery and assault, and he had been dating a girl casually beforehand, who ended up moving to Oregon and waitressing with my mom. So my dad was bored and would write this girl love letters she had no interest in receiving. So she shared them with people at work, and my mom read one of his letters and fell in love with his words and started writing in her friend's place. They wrote for 4 years. This was in the 70s, so that was pretty much the only option they had. When my dad was released to a halfway house, he had a lot of issues readjusting to life, but the biggest one was that they took their shoes at the end of the day when they had to check in. It didn't take him long to run away, and he went to a payphone and called my mom and said, "I'm leaving, they took my shoes, so I can either hitchhike to you or I'm gone. What do you want me to do?" And she said, "Well, come here." So he did. He hitchhiked barefoot to Oregon, and they were married 2 weeks later. So I do have photos of them meeting at the bus stop, and some of the photos with little notes on the back that they wrote back and forth during that time. I mean, I'm a poet, I'm a romantic, so I think it's a romantic story, and especially that it's based largely on words and letters.
This is an Oregon thunder shower.
He was never meant to be in a domestic life, which he pretty much told me.
They split up when I was 14, 15 years old. He ended up moving to North Carolina. I would spend summers there when I was an undergrad, but I think he knew that something was happening. He died of hepatitis C from a prison tattoo. I'm the only person in my immediate family who has never been incarcerated. So both my mom and my sister were in and out of jail and rehab. I have written about it a lot. I think I've gotten a lot of it out. So I don't feel the desire to write about it anymore. In terms of my family, what I've been writing about most recently is my mother's death, since it's just a year ago now. But in terms of my childhood and my relationship with my mom, I think that's like fully purged out of me now. I have seen quite a bit of psychologists and psychiatrists, and especially related to the research that I'm doing right now. And one of the most recent ones said, if you were someone else, if you weren't a writer, then I would recommend that you write. But clearly, this is your way of processing through the trauma. And if you haven't been writing, then you would have become psychotic a long time ago, because trauma feeds psychosis. I'm working on a project right now that will feature the poetry of incarcerated and previously incarcerated Indigenous women, which I think are voices and stories that have been silenced, and these women don't necessarily have an easily accessible platform to tell their stories. When I talk about the project and the kind of stories that are drawn out of these workshops, Indigenous people aren't surprised that Native women are incarcerated at a rate 6 times higher than their white counterparts. These kind of statistics are what need to be known and learned outside of Indigenous communities. So ultimately, this book, I'm hoping, will be used in classroom settings, in university departments, Native departments of different colleges. I'll be donating books to certain tribal schools and Native-based nonprofits, but I still know that those aren't the readers who need the book the most. So there's definitely 2 angles that I'm addressing with it. Writing poetry is free. It's freeing, but through processes like writing, your body and mind, it understands that this trauma happened, but it happened in the past, so you're no longer reacting like it's current. I did not choose my skin or the trauma curdling rancid through my blood. We are born into creation disasters, settled war zones, armed with chance defenses, so forgive me that ivory is my weapon.
I think Cherokees respect the old stories as teaching devices, as entertainment.
Prolific Cherokee author Robert J. Conley promoted Cherokee culture throughout his lifetime, writing more than 80 books over the course of his career.
Robert was one of those writers who loved history, and he would take an incident out of Cherokee history, something that was true, and base a novel around it.
During Robert's childhood, it was his grandparents who fostered an interest in his Cherokee heritage.
He grew up listening to his grandfather tell stories, and his uncles, and people in his family, and then he continued that. That was part of what I think made him who he was. It was a storyteller, really.
In 1975, Robert received a call from the Cherokee Nation, inviting him to come work as a writer.
But that's when we met, was when he came to work for the tribe. I didn't pay any attention at first, but then when he started writing poetry to me, then I started listening. Eventually, I came around.
Robert and Evelyn married in 1978, and Robert continued developing his writing. His first novel, Back to Malachi, was published in 1986. He said it was written out of anger at the misrepresentation of Ned Christie in Western literature. Christie was a Cherokee patriot who had been wrongfully labeled as an outlaw and murdered by lawmen. In 1992, Mountain Wind Song, a novel of the Trail of Tears, was released. Hailed as an American classic, Mountain Wind Song was adapted into a musical in 1995. It premiered in Tahlequah, Oklahoma, and starred Cherokee opera star Barbara McAllister. Throughout the 1990s, Robert also wrote the Real People series. The 10-book-long venture illustrated events and figures from Cherokee history through a fictional lens. Then, in 1995, Robert was approached by Cherokee Chief Wilma Mankiller to write a complete history of the Cherokee Nation. The Cherokee Nation, A History, was published in 2005. It was the first Cherokee history written by a Cherokee Nation citizen and officially backed by the tribe. In 2010, Robert became the first Native American president of the Western Writers of America, and in 2014, he received the organization's Owen Wister Award for Lifetime Achievement.
So he promptly put it by his bed and slept with it, and with his hand right here on the buffalo, on the bronze. That was around the 1st of February, and then by the 16th, he was gone.
On February 16, 2014, Robert passed away at age 73.
He was one of those pioneers who helped bring that knowledge and that knowing forward. You know, it's not like we lost it. It's always been there, and it remains there in all of the stories that that are known, that are told, that are retold, and so forth. And I think a lot of people were inspired by his writings.
Jaleke Idewonihi. Let's talk Cherokee. Siyo, juicy dawadoa.
Siyo, juicy dawadoa.
I'm hungry. Agiyosi.
Agiyosi.
I'm hungry. Agiyosi.
Agiyosi.
Wayne Garner is a Cherokee red dirt country musician with a style all his own. We follow him on the road as he tries to break through with audiences across the country.
Who's got keys?
Some nights were, 5 to 20 nights in a row in a bar. We tour out more than anything. So to be making money, you have to be on the road. Day to day, wake up, hit the road, load in, get everything set up, sound check, grab something to eat, hang out for a second, play the show, break down, load up, head to the next venue. My fans see me as a native artist. We exist, we're out there. There's not very many of us, and so when we do go play and there are tribal members, it's always good to have that kind of support. Yeah, we started out like playing out through Texas and Oklahoma, mainly touring out on the West Coast, and just coming out here and really just making a lot of friends and fans, and played here at the Rainbow, Viper Room, just a lot of other key landmark places. First show in Hollywood ever was at the Whiskey A Go-Go a little over 2 years ago. Played here about, I think, 5 times now. Played with Raylan Nelson here. We played with David Allan Coe. Sold out show with David Allan Coe is amazing. And so when we're out in LA, we're just working on songwriting, song shopping, making connections. I'm not really a big singing about tractors and dirt roads and stuff guy. You look back at Johnny Cash and Waylon and Willie, and most of those songs weren't driving around in a tractor with, and your girlfriend, just kind of cheesy stuff. It was real life stuff. So that's kind of what I try and base or make my material around real life. I got my first guitar, I think at the age of 5 or 6. I would just sit in my room and listen to them and try and figure out how to play guitar right. Never had any lessons or anything like that. I should have, but so I ended up picking up everything.
There's this one song that I hardly play for anybody. I actually recorded it, but I based it upon one of my third great grandfather coming across the Trail of Tears. Yeah, he made 7 trips. But the song's called Long Walk Ahead. And starts off, it's like, explain to me what sin is, and give us your disease, 'cause that sounds like freedom to me. And drive the sadness down that old weary road, just to watch another man.
I've always been into our family history and knowing where we're from. My grandmother pretty much just kind of instilled that to me. Like everything she told me really stuck with me, making sure everything was, staying centered around the tribe and being Cherokee. She was kind of the staple of everything for the Cherokee Nation. When I was little, she'd have me up on her knee or something, telling me stories and different things. And, you're an Indian, you're a Cherokee, you're gonna have to fight for everything you have. You're gonna have to work harder than everybody. Dude, it was rough. I mean, it was insane to what they had to go through and stuff.
Long walk ahead. You can feel that trail up to you. Some might say I'm some romantic fool, down man way too deep. But I feel like I found forever's just you and me.
Favorite part of being a musician is probably traveling. Getting to see, everything that I've seen in movies or read about in books, and it's always one of those things where you just kind of want to stop and be able to take everything in. You're gonna test your family, your friendships, all your relationships are all gonna be tested just, by going down this path. And you're gonna have to be willing to sacrifice everything to do it. Like I've been homeless, I've, lived in my car. I didn't really want anybody's, help. I just always stuck with it, and it always panned out. Very grateful and very fortunate to be where we're at right now, even if it's a lower level that's climbing. So, because that's ultimately, why you're in it. Seems like everything, all the hard work's starting to pay off.
Just you and me. Here we go.
We hope you enjoyed our show. And remember, you can always watch entire episodes and share your favorite stories online at Osio.tv. There is no Cherokee word for goodbye because we know we'll see you again. We say, Dodadago Ha'i. Wado.